The morning after Kivo's accident, Yuna called an emergency meeting with all the parents and Tovan. She stood before them with the sunglasses in her hand. "You're right to be angry," she began. "I made a mistake. I taught the cubs to dream, but I didn't teach them enough about the dangers. That changes today." Tovan crossed his arms. "The training should end. It's too dangerous." "With respect, Elder, the training failed because I didn't go far enough, not because I went too far," Yuna said. "Kivo fell because he felt invincible. He forgot to be afraid. Real pilot training includes learning about failure, about fear, about what happens when things go wrong. Let me teach them that. Let me show them the complete picture. And if another accident happens," a parent demanded. "Then it happens under controlled conditions where we can manage it," Yuna replied. "Because the truth is the cubs already have the dream now. Taking away the sunglasses won't erase what they've felt. They'll still try to climb, still try to reach higher. Wouldn't you rather they do it with proper knowledge and adult supervision?" The adults murmured among themselves. Finally, Tovan spoke. "You have one more chance, but we will be watching every lesson. And the first sign of recklessness, this ends forever." "Understood," Yuna said. The new phase of training was different. Yuna started with a lesson she called Respecting the Fall. She took all the cubs to her crashed ship and showed them the damage up close. "This is what happens when things go wrong in space," she explained, running her paw along the twisted metal. "This ship was designed to protect me, and it barely did. If I had been going faster, or hit at a different angle, I would be dead. Every time a pilot sits in their ship, they know they might not come back. That's why we train so hard. That's why we follow every safety rule. That's why we never ever think we're invincible." The cubs were quiet, really understanding for the first time that flying wasn't just adventure and freedom. It was also responsibility and risk. Next, Yuna taught them about emergency procedures. When something goes wrong, you don't panic. You follow your training. You have a plan for every possible problem. She created scenarios where the cubs had to solve problems quickly. What do you do if your engine fails? What do you do if you can't see? What do you do if your teammate is hurt? The training became more serious, more structured. But something interesting happened. The cubs didn't lose their enthusiasm. Instead, they became more determined. They understood now that being a real pilot meant being smart, prepared, and humble. Kivo was the most changed. His brush with death had taught him a lesson he would never forget. He became the strictest about following safety rules. When other cubs wanted to take shortcuts, he reminded them about what happened to him. His bandages became like a badge, a reminder to everyone about the importance of being careful. 2 weeks into the new training program, something unexpected happened. Some of the adult Kirin asked if they could observe the lessons. Then a few asked if they could participate. Doyan, the hunter who had saved Kivo, was particularly interested. "These skills you're teaching," he said to Yuna, "this awareness, this teamwork, this careful planning, they're not just useful for flying. They're useful for hunting, for building, for living." Yuna realized he was right. The skills of a pilot were really just the skills of someone who thought ahead, worked well with others, and respected danger. She welcomed the adults to join the training. The settlement began to change. Cubs and adults trained together, learning to communicate better, to solve problems as teams, to think about consequences before acting. The pilot training had become something bigger than just dreaming about space. It had become a new way of approaching life. One evening, as the sun set, Yuna gathered the original Sunglass Squadron on the hill where her distress beacon blinked steadily. "You've all earned these," she said, holding up the sunglasses. "Not because you can wear them and look cool, but because you understand what they represent. They represent the dream of flying, yes, but also the responsibility that comes with that dream." She handed the sunglasses to Kivo first. He put them on carefully, reverently. He didn't make engine sounds or pretend to pilot a ship. He just stood there looking at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky, thinking about everything he had learned. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not giving up on us after I messed up." "Pilots mess up," Yuna said. "The difference between a good pilot and a dead one is that good pilots learn from their mistakes." Over the next few days, each member of the squadron earned their turn with the sunglasses. Minji wore them while successfully navigating a complex obstacle course. Juan wore them after demonstrating perfect communication during a team exercise. Bora and Gina wore them together after they successfully taught younger cubs a difficult concept. Sungo wore them after he overcame his shyness to lead a training session. The sunglasses had become what Yuna always meant them to be. Not a toy, not a shortcut to feeling special, but a symbol of achievement and growth. One morning, Yuna was teaching an advanced class about trajectory and momentum when someone ran into the training area, shouting, "Light in the sky! A falling star!" Everyone looked up. But this wasn't a falling star. Yuna's experienced eyes recognized it immediately. It was a ship entering the atmosphere. Her distress signal had been answered. Her heart sank even as relief flooded through her. Someone was coming to rescue her. She could finally go home. But home meant leaving this place, leaving these cubs she had grown to love, leaving the community she had helped change. As the ship grew larger in the sky, the cubs gathered around Yuna. They understood what this meant. "You're leaving," Kivo said. "It wasn't a question. I have to," Yuna said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I'll never forget any of you." The ship landed in the clearing near the settlement. It was a rescue vessel from the Human Federation. 2 pilots stepped out, surprised to see the human woman surrounded by alien cubs and adults. "Yuna Park?" one of them asked. "We received your distress signal. Are you injured?" "I'm fine," Yuna said. "Better than fine, actually." She explained the situation to the rescue team. They were amazed by what she had accomplished during her time here. One of them, an older pilot named Captain J, looked at the gathered Kirin with respect. "You've done something special here," he said to Yuna. "These cubs, they look at you like you're their teacher." "They are my students," Yuna said, "and I'm so proud of them." Before she left, Yuna had one final lesson. She brought the cubs to the rescue ship and, with the captain's permission, let them see inside a real spacecraft. Their eyes went wide with wonder as they saw the control panels, the navigation systems, the pilot seats. "This is what you've been training for," Yuna said. "Not these exact ships, maybe. But your people will build their own ships someday. And when they do, you'll be ready. You'll know how to think like pilots, how to work as a team, how to respect the power of flight while still daring to dream." She pulled out a small package. Inside were 6 more pairs of aviator sunglasses, one she had requested from the rescue team's supply. "These are yours now," she said, handing one to each member of the sunglass squadron. "When you wear them, remember everything you learned. Remember that dreams are powerful, but discipline makes dreams real." As Yuna's ship lifted off, she looked down at the settlement one last time. The cubs stood in a line, all wearing their sunglasses, their arms raised in salute. They had started as silly youngsters fighting over a shiny toy. Now they stood as the first graduates of an alien flight school, carrying within them the seeds of a dream that would one day take their people to the stars. And Yuna knew, without any doubt, that they would get there. For the next 2 days, Yuna spent her mornings working on the distress beacon at her crashed ship. She was able to pull out some working parts from the broken communication system. If she connected them correctly, she could send a signal that other ships might detect. But it was slow work and she needed parts she didn't have. In the afternoon, she watched the cubs. She sat quietly near their play area and observed. They had divided into teams now, competing to see who could build the best pretend ship. They argued constantly about whose turn it was to wear the sunglasses. The tension was growing. Yuna also watched how the adult Kirin taught their cubs. The lessons were about tradition and safety. The cubs learned which plants were safe to eat, how to weave baskets, how to track small animals in the forest. Everything was practical and grounded. Nothing encouraged them to imagine or dream beyond what they could see. On the 3rd evening, Yuna asked to speak with Tovan privately. They sat outside his house drinking a warm tea made from purple flowers. "Elder Tovan, can I ask you something?" Yuna began. "Why do you fear the cubs dreaming about the sky?" Tovan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Many seasons ago, a young Kirin became obsessed with the sky. She would climb the tallest trees, trying to reach the clouds. She talked about flying away from our world. One day she climbed too high and fell. She did not die, but she was badly hurt. Since then, we teach our cubs to stay grounded, to be practical, to accept their place in the world." Yuna nodded slowly. "I understand your fear. But may I tell you about humans?" "Please," Tovan said. "Humans have always looked up," Yuna explained. "We saw birds flying and we dreamed of flying too. For thousands of years we couldn't fly, but we kept dreaming. We kept trying. Some humans died trying to fly, but we didn't stop dreaming. Eventually we learned. We built machines that could carry us into the sky. Then we built machines that could carry us to the stars. But at what cost? Tovan asked. How many died for this dream? Many, Yuna admitted. But many more lived because of it. We discovered new worlds, new resources, new friends among the stars. If we had stopped dreaming after the first failure, humans would still be trapped on one small planet. We would never have met you. Tovan considered this. But the sunglasses make the cubs reckless. They take risks they should not take. That's because they only have the dream, not the knowledge, Yuna said. Real pilots don't just dream about flying. They study for years. They learn about physics and navigation and safety. They understand that flying is both wonderful and dangerous. The sunglasses represent the dream, but I never taught them the discipline that must come with it. She leaned forward. Let me teach them properly. Let me show them what it really means to be a pilot. If they want to wear the sunglasses, they have to earn them. They have to learn responsibility along with the dream. Tovan's ear flicked, a sign he was thinking hard. And if I say no? If I order you to take the sunglasses and keep them hidden? Yuna met his eyes. I would respect your decision. But the dream is already in them now. You can take away the sunglasses, but you can't take away what they've already felt. They will always remember how it felt to believe they could fly. Wouldn't it be better to guide that feeling than to crush it? The elder was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, You may try your teaching, but if the cubs remain reckless, if they continue to ignore their duties, then you must take your sunglasses and keep them away. Agreed? Agreed, Yuna said. The next morning, Yuna gathered all 6 cubs in the central meeting area. Many adults watched from a distance, curious about what the Sky Traveler would do. Kivo bounced excitedly. Are we going to fly today? No, Yuna said firmly. Today we're going to learn what pilots do before they ever fly. The cubs looked disappointed. Listen carefully, Yuna continued. You all want to wear my sunglasses. You want to feel like pilots. But being a pilot isn't just about wearing cool equipment and making engine sounds. Being a pilot means having knowledge, discipline, and responsibility. If you want to earn the right to wear these sunglasses, you have to prove you understand what being a pilot really means. Minji raised her paw. What do we have to do? Yuna smiled. We're starting a training program. Pilot training. It won't be easy. You'll have to work hard, learn new things, and follow rules. But if you complete the training, each of you will get to wear the sunglasses properly. And I'll ask the next supply ship to bring more sunglasses so you can each have your own. The cubs' eyes went wide with excitement. Their own sunglasses. But, Yuna added, if you can't follow the training, if you don't take it seriously, then the program ends and the sunglasses go away forever. Understood. The cubs all nodded eagerly. Good. Then we start now. First lesson, awareness. A pilot must always know exactly where they are and what's around them. We're going to play a game. She had them close their eyes and walk slowly through the meeting area while she called out obstacles. Tree root on your left, Kivo. Step over it. Juan, there's a stone 2 steps ahead. Go around it. At first, the cubs stumbled and bumped into things, but they were learning to listen carefully and move with purpose. After an hour, they were much better at it. The second lesson was about teamwork. Pilots never fly alone, Yuna explained. Even if you're the only one in the ship, you have people on the ground helping you, guiding you, keeping you safe. You have to trust your team and communicate clearly. She created an obstacle course and had the cubs go through it in pairs. One cub was blindfolded while the other gave directions. This was harder. Juan kept giving confusing directions. Bora and Gina spoke at the same time and confused their partners. But slowly they learned to speak clearly and trust each other. By the end of the first day, the cubs were exhausted but happy. They had learned something real, not just played pretend. As the days passed, word spread through the settlement about the pilot training. Other cubs became curious and asked to join. Even some younger adults watched the training sessions with interest. Yuna taught them about simple physics using demonstrations. She showed them how throwing a stone in an arc was similar to how ships move in space. She taught them about momentum using a rolling ball. She explained why ships needed fuel and what happened when they ran out. The cubs absorbed everything. They asked smart questions. They practiced the exercises even when Yuna wasn't watching. The change in them was remarkable. They were still excited and energetic, but now they had focus and purpose. Tovan watched all of this with growing surprise. The Sky Traveler had done something he didn't expect. She had taken the cubs' wild dream and shaped it into something useful. They were learning skills that would help them even if they never left the planet. They were learning to think, to plan, to work together. Maybe, he thought, dreams weren't so dangerous after all, at least not when someone taught you how to dream responsibly. 3 weeks had passed since Yuna started the pilot training program. The 6 cubs had grown so much. They woke up early every morning, eager for their lessons. They helped each other with difficult exercises. They even started doing their regular chores without complaint because Yuna had explained that real pilots needed to be responsible in all parts of their lives, not just in the cockpit. The adults in the settlement had noticed the change too. The cubs who were in the program were more focused, more cooperative, and strangely more confident. They walked with their heads higher. They solved problems more creatively. Even their regular teachers commented on the improvement. Now other cubs wanted to join. Yuna expanded the program to include 12 cubs total. She was running out of training ideas, but the cubs' enthusiasm pushed her to be creative. She taught them star patterns using drawings in the dirt. She explained basic navigation using the position of the sun. She created math problems disguised as fuel calculations. The original 6 cubs, who now called themselves the Sunglass Squadron, became assistant teachers. Kivo was especially good at explaining things to the younger cubs. Minji created a whole system for tracking everyone's progress. The twins Bora and Gina invented new training games that made learning fun. One afternoon, Yuna finally finished her distress beacon. She carried it to the highest hill near the settlement and activated it. The small device blinked with a steady blue light, sending out a signal that would hopefully reach a passing ship. Now all she could do was wait. The cubs gathered around her on the hill. "How long until someone comes?" Songho asked. "I don't know," Yuna admitted. "Maybe a few days. Maybe a few weeks. Space is very big and there aren't many ships in this area." Kivo looked sad. "When they come, you'll leave us." Yuna felt a tightness in her chest. She had grown attached to these cubs and their village. "Yes, I'll have to go. But I'll never forget you all. You've become real students of flight, even if you've never left the ground." "Tell us more about space," Minji said. "Tell us about the most dangerous thing that can happen to a pilot." Yuna thought for a moment. "The most dangerous thing is overconfidence. When you start to believe you know everything, when you stop being careful, that's when mistakes happen. My grandfather told me that the moment you stop respecting the power of flight is the moment flight will humble you." The cubs listened carefully, absorbing her words. But the next day, the lesson was forgotten in a moment of excitement. The cubs had been working on their most ambitious project yet. They had built a large structure from wood and vines, a pretend ship that was almost 2 stories tall. It had different levels connected by ramps and rope ladders. They had been building it for days, and today they were going to do a full crew simulation. Kivo wore the sunglasses because he was the captain for this mission. The other 5 cubs of the original squadron took positions throughout the structure. The newer cubs watched from below, excited to see the demonstration. "All crew, report status," Kivo called out, his voice confident behind the dark lenses. "Navigation ready," Minji responded from her position. "Engines at full power," Juan shouted, making engine sounds. "Shields holding," the twins called together. "All systems functional," Sungho added. "Then we launch," Kivo announced. He spread his arms and looked up at the sky. In his mind, they weren't standing in a wooden structure. They were really flying, really leaving the planet, really touching the stars. He climbed higher on the structure, wanting to reach the very top platform. This was against Yuna's rules. They weren't supposed to climb to the highest level because it wasn't stable yet. "Kivo, wait," Minji called. "That level isn't safe." But Kivo was caught up in the moment. He felt invincible wearing those sunglasses. He felt like a real pilot. He pulled himself onto the top platform. The wood creaked ominously. "Captain, come down," Juan shouted, fear in his voice now. Kivo looked out from the top of the structure. He could see the whole village, the forest beyond, the hills in the distance. For a moment, he really felt like he was flying. He closed his eyes and spread his arms wide, imagining the wind of space rushing past him. The platform broke. Kivo fell, his arms windmilling, his expression changing from joy to shock. The sunglasses flew off his face. He crashed through the lower levels of the structure, breaking vines and wood. The other cubs screamed, but before Kivo could hit the ground, strong arms caught him. Doyen, one of the settlement's hunters, had been walking past when he heard the commotion. He moved with incredible speed, catching the falling cub just in time. Kivo lay in Doyun's arms, shaking. He wasn't badly hurt, just scratched and bruised, but he could have been killed. The reality of what almost happened hit him hard. Tears filled his eyes. The news spread through the settlement quickly. Within minutes, angry parents surrounded the broken structure. Tovan arrived, his face dark with anger. "This is what happens," he shouted, pointing at the destroyed structure. "This is what your sky dreams lead to. The cub could have died." Yuna ran to the scene, her heart pounding. She saw Kivo crying in his mother's arms. She saw the broken structure. She saw the anger in the adult's eyes. She felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. "I'm sorry," she said to Tovan. "This is my fault. I should have supervised them more carefully." "Your fault?" Tovan's voice was cold. "You filled their heads with these dangerous dreams. You made them believe they could fly. Look what happened. This is exactly what I warned you about." Other adults voiced their agreement. They had been willing to let their cubs participate in the training, but this accident had brought back all their fears. "Destroy those eye protectors," someone shouted. "They're cursed." "Send the Sky Traveler away," another voice added. "She brings only danger." Yuna felt tears stinging her own eyes. She had tried so hard to teach the cubs properly, to give them the dream and the discipline together, but maybe Tovan had been right all along. Maybe some dreams were too dangerous. That night, Yuna sat alone in her guest house holding her grandfather's sunglasses. They looked so harmless, just metal and glass. But they had caused so much trouble. Maybe she should destroy them. Maybe it would be better to crush the dream before it crushed these innocent cubs. There was a soft knock on her door. She opened it to find Kivo standing there, bandaged but steady. His eyes were red from crying, but his expression was determined. "I'm sorry," he said. "I broke the rules. I thought I knew better. I thought wearing the sunglasses made me invincible. I was wrong." Yuna knelt down to his level. "You could have died." "I know," Kivo said quietly. "And I understand now what you meant about overconfidence. I stopped respecting the danger. I stopped being careful. That's not what real pilots do, is it?" Yuna shook her head. "No, it's not. Does this mean the training is over?" Kivo asked, his voice small. Yuna looked at this brave cub who had learned such a hard lesson. She thought about her grandfather, who had crashed twice in his pilot career but never stopped flying. She thought about every human who had failed, learned and tried again. "No," she said finally, "the training isn't over. But tomorrow we're learning a new lesson. The most important one. We're learning about failure and about how real pilots get back up after they fall." The morning sun was just starting to rise when Kivo woke up. He couldn't sleep anymore. His mind was too full of thoughts about the Sky Traveler and her amazing stories. He had never felt so excited about anything before. He quietly left his family's house and went to wake up his friends. There was Minji, who was the smallest of their group but also the smartest. There was Juan, who was always making jokes. There were twins named Bora and Gina, who could climb better than anyone. And there was Sungho, who was shy but loyal. "Let's go see the Sky Traveler," Kivo whispered to them. "Maybe she will tell us more stories." They crept through the settlement while most adults were still sleeping. When they reached Yuna's guest house, they peeked through the window. The Sky Traveler was asleep on the mat, breathing slowly and peacefully. "We shouldn't wake her," Minji said. "She must be very tired." "Look at her bag," Juan said, pointing with his paw. "What do you think is inside?" Kivo's curiosity burned inside him. What kind of amazing things did Sky Travelers carry? He pushed the door open very slowly. It made a small creaking sound. The cubs froze, but Yuna didn't wake up. They tiptoed inside. Kivo reached the bag and carefully opened it. Inside he found strange items. Some wrapped food that smelled odd, a flat box with a red cross on it, a small device with buttons and lights. And then he saw them, the shiny things that Yuna had worn on her head yesterday. They had dark glass on them and were made of metal that reflected the morning light. Kivo picked them up carefully. They were smooth and cool in his paws. "What are they?" Bora whispered. "I think she wore them on her face," Kivo said. "Like this." He put them on, hooking the arms over his ears like he had seen Yuna do. The world became darker but clearer. The bright morning sun didn't hurt his eyes anymore. But more than that, Kivo felt different. He felt powerful. He felt like he could do anything. He stood up straighter. He spread his arms wide like wings. Vroom. He made the sound he imagined flying machines made. "I'm a Sky Traveler now. I'm flying between the stars. The other cub stared at him with wide eyes. Kivo looked amazing with those shiny things on his face. He looked important. He looked brave. "Let me try," Juan said, reaching for the sunglasses. "No, I found them," Kivo said, but Juan grabbed them anyway. When Juan put them on, he gasped. "Whoa, I can see everything. I'm flying. Whoa, vroom. Watch out for those space rocks." Juan ran around the small room, tilting his body left and right like he was steering a ship. The other cubs laughed and chased him. "My turn," Minji demanded. One by one, they all tried on the sunglasses. When Minji wore them, she pretended to read star maps and give orders. When the twins wore them, they pretended to be a two-pilot crew, shouting coordinates to each other. When Sungho wore them, even he became confident and started making engine sounds. They were so busy playing that they didn't notice Yuna wake up. She sat up on her sleeping mat and watched them with a confused smile. "Good morning," she said. The cubs froze. Kivo, who was wearing the sunglasses at that moment, slowly took them off. "We're sorry," he said quietly. "We just wanted to see them." Yuna stretched and yawned. She wasn't angry. Actually, she thought it was funny. "Those are called sunglasses. They protect your eyes from bright light." "They're amazing," Kivo said. "When you wear them, you feel like you can fly." "Is that so?" Yuna smiled. She had never thought about it that way, but maybe Kivo was right. Her grandfather always said that wearing his pilot sunglasses made him feel connected to the sky. More adult Kirins started to wake up and begin their day. Yuna told the cubs they should go home for breakfast, and they reluctantly left. But Kivo kept looking back at the sunglasses. Over the next few days, something strange happened. The cubs became obsessed with the sunglasses. They would come to Yuna's house and beg to try them on. At first, Yuna let them, thinking it was harmless fun. But then the begging turned into arguments about whose turn it was. The cubs started fighting over the sunglasses. Worse, they stopped paying attention to their normal lessons and chores. Instead, they spent all their time building pretend ships from sticks and vines. They would take turns wearing the sunglasses and piloting these ships, making engine sounds and pretending to dodge asteroids. Yuna noticed something unusual. When the cubs wore the sunglasses and played their flying games, they moved with surprising coordination. Kivo would shout, "Left turn," and Minji would lean left at exactly the right angle. Juan would yell, "Dive," and Sungho would crouch and roll perfectly. It was like the sunglasses actually helped them understand movement and space better. But she also noticed something concerning. The cubs were becoming reckless. They climbed higher, ran faster, and took bigger risks during their games. They wanted to feel like real pilots, like real sky travelers. One evening, Tovan came to visit Yuna. His face looked worried. "The cubs are not behaving well," he said. "Their parents are complaining. The younglings refuse to do their work. They only want to play with your shiny eye protectors. They talk constantly about flying and leaving our world. This is not good." Yuna felt a knot form in her stomach. She hadn't meant to cause problems. "I'm sorry, Elder Tovan. I didn't realize they would become so focused on the sunglasses." "You must take them back," Tovan said firmly. "The cubs need to learn our ways, not dream about the sky. Dreams of leaving only bring sadness." Yuna understood his concern, but something about his words bothered her. Why was dreaming about the sky a bad thing? Humans had always looked up and wondered. That curiosity had taken them to the stars. Why should the Kirin cubs be different? That night, Kivo snuck to her house alone. He looked sad. "Are you going to take the sunglasses away forever?" he asked. "I don't know," Yuna said honestly. "The elder says you're not focusing on important things." "But flying is important," Kivo said with passion in his voice. "When I wear those sunglasses, I feel like I can be more than just a cub in a small village. I feel like I can touch the stars." Yuna looked at this brave little cub and saw something she recognized. She saw the same fire her grandfather must have had when he was young, the same desire to soar that had eventually led humans to space. She made a decision then. She wouldn't just take the sunglasses away. She would teach these cubs what being a real pilot meant. The warning lights flashed red across the control panel. Yuna Park gripped the steering controls as her small transport ship shook violently. She had been flying this route for 3 years, carrying diplomatic messages between the outer colonies. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Come on," she whispered, trying to restart the main engine. The ship dropped another 1,000 meters. Through the window, she could see the green planet below getting closer very fast. The engine was dead. Yuna stopped trying to fix it and focused on landing. She pulled up the nose of the ship and fired the emergency thrusters. They would only work for a few seconds, but maybe it would be enough. The ship hit the treetops first. Branches scraped against the metal hull with horrible screeching sounds. Then the ship crashed into the ground, sliding through dirt and rocks before finally stopping against a large tree. Una sat still for a moment, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. She checked herself for injuries. A few bruises, nothing serious. She was lucky to be alive. She grabbed her emergency bag from under the seat. Inside was a medical kit, some food packets, a universal translator device, and her grandfather's old aviator sunglasses. She always kept them with her, even though they were just regular sunglasses. Her grandfather had been a pilot back on Earth, flying small planes through mountain valleys. The sunglasses reminded her of his stories about freedom and adventure. Una put the sunglasses on top of her head and climbed out of the broken ship. The air outside was warm and smelled like flowers. She was on Valaris 9, she remembered from her navigation charts. The planet was home to the Kirin, a species that looked somewhat like the cats from Earth, but they walked on two legs and were as tall as humans. She heard voices. High-pitched and excited, Una turned around and saw 6 small creatures watching her from behind a bush. They had fur with stripes and spots, large golden eyes, and small rounded ears. These must be Kirin cubs, she thought. They looked very young. One of them, braver than the others, stepped forward. He had orange and white fur and a black stripe across his nose. He chittered something in a language Una didn't understand. She pulled out her translator device and turned it on. After a moment, it beeped. "Hello," she said slowly. "I'm Una. My ship crashed. I need help." The translator made clicking and chirping sounds. The brave cub's eyes went wide. He turned to his friends and chittered excitedly. Then he looked back at Una and said something. The translator worked. "You fell from the sky. Are you a sky spirit?" Una almost laughed, but she kept her face serious. These cubs had probably never seen a human or a spaceship before. "No, I'm not a spirit. I'm just a traveler. My flying machine broke." The cubs came closer, surrounding her. They touched her clothes with their small paws, amazed by the fabric. One of them tried to touch her hair. They were curious but not afraid. "We should tell the elders," the brave cub said. "Come with us. Our village is close." Una followed the cubs through the forest. The trees were tall with purple leaves. Strange birds sang in the branches. After walking for 10 minutes, they reached a clearing with many round houses made of wood and clay. Adult Kirin stopped their work to stare at her. An older Kirin with gray fur approached. He was taller than the others and wore a necklace made of colorful stones. His eyes studied Una carefully. "I am Tovan, the elder of this settlement," the translator said in his voice. "The cubs say you fell from the sky. Is this true?" Una nodded. "My ship crashed in the forest near here. I'm a diplomatic courier for the Human Federation. I mean no harm to you or your people. I just need to send a distress signal so my people can find me." Tavan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We have heard stories of sky travelers, but we have never seen one. You are the first to come to our world. You may stay in our settlement while you do what you need to do. We will help if we can." Relief flooded through Una. "Thank you. I'm very grateful." Tovan assigned her a small guest house at the edge of the settlement. It was simple but comfortable, with a sleeping mat and a small fire pit. The cubs followed her, still chattering with excitement. The brave one seemed to be their leader. "What is your name?" Una asked him. "Kivo," he said proudly. "I found you first." "Well, Kivo, thank you for bringing me here safely." As the day went on, more Kirin came to see the strange visitor. They brought her food, which was mainly fruits and cooked vegetables. It tasted good. Una tried to be polite and answer their questions. Most of them wanted to know about the sky, about other worlds, about flying between stars. The cubs were the most excited. They asked endless questions. Can you really fly? What does it feel like? Are there many sky travelers? Do you fight sky monsters? Una answered as best as she could, keeping her explanations simple. She told them about spaceships and different planets, about how she carried messages between worlds to help people understand each other better. As the sun began to set, Tovan told the cubs to go home. They left reluctantly, looking back at Una until they disappeared around the houses. That night, Una lay on the sleeping mat, exhausted. Tomorrow she would go back to her ship and try to build a distress beacon from the broken parts. It would take time, but she had no other choice. She just had to be patient. She took off her grandfather's sunglasses and placed them carefully in her bag. She didn't know that in a few hours those simple sunglasses would change everything for the Kirin cubs. She didn't know that her crash landing would start something bigger than she could imagine. For now, she just closed her eyes and fell asleep, listening to the strange night sounds of an alien world.